Welcome back to Bad Things in History, where the narrator would love to hear your favorite bad things in the comments, to shake things up a little. Our series examining the worst events of the 1970s continues with the horrible happenings of 1974. Shootings, bombings, and amusement park accidents were just a few of the worst features of this terrible year. Let's begin with a high-rise fire in Brazil. Joelma Building. Most buildings in major cities are safe today, but in the not-so-distant past, they tended to become towering infernos of death. The Joelma Building was a 25-story structure. It was constructed in Sao Paulo, Brazil, in 1971. The exterior was made of reinforced fire-resistant concrete, but the interior of the building was far less concerned with the safety of its occupants. There were no emergency exits. There were no fire sprinklers installed. Additionally, the ceilings were made of wood tiles. The carpets and curtains throughout the building were also extremely flammable. The problems extended to appliances as well. When an air conditioning unit was installed on the roof, the building didn't have the required circuit breaker to handle the power requirements. But Brazil is very hot, and people couldn't work in the building if it wasn't cooled, so the installers simply bypassed the building's circuit breaker so that the air conditioner would work. On the morning of February 1st, 1974, the air conditioning unit short-circuited. Within 20 minutes, the building was engulfed in flames. There were 756 people in the Joelma Building when it caught on fire. Firefighters couldn't extinguish the flames and had to let the fire burn itself out, which took about 2 hours. 40 of the victims jumped to their death to avoid burning in the flames. Around 189 more died either from burning to death or smoke inhalation. The disaster resulted in new safety regulations for buildings not only in Brazil, but all over the world. Ermenonville Air Disaster. Turkish Airlines Flight 981 was a McConnell Douglas DC-10 that normally carried passengers from Istanbul to London. Along the way, it usually stopped in Paris. A little before 8 a.m. on March 3, 1974, Flight 981 began its trip to England. It stopped in Paris as planned. Some passengers left the aircraft while new ones arrived. At 12:32 p.m., the plane took off and began the final leg of its journey. As Flight 981 passed over the town of Meaux, the rear cargo door blew off. The sudden difference in air pressure caused part of the cabin door to get sucked out of the aircraft as well. There were 6 seats attached to the floor. The passengers in those seats were also pulled out of the airplane, falling to their deaths. When the door peeled off, it also severed the plane's control mechanisms. The pilot couldn't keep control of the aircraft. The DC-10 crashed into a turnip field near the Ermenonville forest. There were 346 people on board the airplane. Only 188 of them could be visually identified. The crash destroyed the bodies so thoroughly that investigators had to remove 20,000 pieces of human remains from the area. An investigation determined that an electrical fault prevented the cargo door from being secured. The engineers also failed to check it correctly in Istanbul. Cargo doors were redesigned to prevent this type of accident from happening again. Chipko Movement. The 1970s created several environmental movements all over the world. One of them would begin because of concerned women in the Himalayas. Starting around 1964, logging became a common feature in the Uttarakhand region of India, but the logging business didn't help the locals. Workers from out of town descended on the area and cut down the trees. They were also the ones being paid. Most of those who lived in the region simply suffered in poverty while their environment was being destroyed. The deforestation contributed to floods in July 1970, which made many of the locals homeless. Those who lived within and around the forest began organizing themselves in 1971. At first, they simply marched in public and loudly demanded change. But soon their strategy evolved and became more confrontational. In March 1973, workers arrived to cut down more trees. However, their path was blocked by villagers playing drums and chanting. Eventually, the workers gave up and left. The villagers were temporarily victorious. Meanwhile, the Indian government auctioned off the right to cut down 2,500 trees that overlooked the Alaknanda River. On March 24, 1974, the lumber company and its workers arrived ready to remove the trees. Several women from the nearby village knew they were coming and refused to let the trees die. 27 women from the village confronted the workers. The encounter escalated until the two groups were yelling at each other. So the women decided to quit talking and act. They began placing themselves between the trees and the lumber workers. The women stood vigil all night, ensuring that their trees would not be killed. The next day, news of the event reached surrounding villages. More people began pouring into the forest to help save the trees. Those who participated in saving the environment became part of what would be called the Chipko Movement. The movement consisted mainly of women, and they would have many successes over the years. Unfortunately, none of the activists were able to completely stop the march of progress. Environmental destruction in India is still a problem today. Smiling Buddha. India was busy in 1974. In addition to destroying forests, the country was also occupied with developing nuclear weapons. India began its nuclear program in 1944. The first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, described the country's intent. "We must develop this atomic energy quite apart from war. Indeed, I think we must develop it for the purpose of using it for peaceful purposes. Of course, if we are compelled as a nation to use it for other purposes, possibly no pious sentiments of any of us will stop the nation from using it that way." Homi Jehangir Bhabha was the physicist responsible for developing nuclear technology. At first, he was interested in peaceful applications. That changed in 1954 when India's program started trying to produce a nuclear weapon, but it would take years for the project to succeed. In December 1971, India found itself in a brief war with Pakistan. During that war, the United States sent an aircraft carrier into the Bay of Bengal to intimidate India. The Soviet Union then sent a nuclear submarine to watch the aircraft carrier. It became clear to Indian leaders that having nuclear weapons was a valuable deterrent against more powerful nations. After nearly 20 years of development, India's first nuclear bomb was ready. The weapon was called Smiling Buddha, and it was finally tested on May 18, 1974. The bomb detonated successfully, though its yield was much less than nuclear weapons used by the United States and Soviet Union. The destructive power of the device was like the atomic bombs dropped on Japan in 1945. Pakistan was very unhappy about the development. Canada felt that India violated international treaties by making the weapon. The United States concluded the nuclear test didn't violate any agreements. America Sings. Disneyland opened in Anaheim, California in 1955. It soon became one of the most popular amusement parks in the world. In addition to entertaining families, the park has also killed workers. As the bicentennial of the United States approached in 1976, Disneyland planned to celebrate the event. As part of that effort, America Sings made its debut on June 29, 1974. The attraction was made a carousel that would spin in a counterclockwise direction. A curtain would lift and animatronic animals would be visible to the audience. The mechanical creatures would sing a song. When finished, the curtain would fall, the carousel would rotate, and another show would begin. When the internal wall of the carousel rotated, there was very little space between it and the wall of the building that housed the attraction. The danger of this situation would become obvious only a few days after the attraction opened. On July 8th, an 18-year-old woman named Deborah Gale Stone was working in America Sings. At 10:35 p.m., one of the musical numbers ended. The curtain came down and the wall began to rotate to the next event. Audience members could hear Deborah's screams of pain. When Disneyland employees found her several minutes later, Deborah was already dead. The rotating walls crushed her to death. America Sings was temporarily closed after the incident. Deborah's parents sued Disneyland and received a small settlement. America Sings was entertaining guests again on July 11th, just 3 days after the accident. Disney installed safety lights and made sure the walls would break away if anyone else was trapped between them. The new safety measures prevented anyone else from dying. America Sings remained an attraction at Disneyland until 1988. Birmingham Pub Bombings. In 1973, the Irish Republican Army began attacking targets in England when possible. They hoped bringing violence to the country would change public opinion and force the British out of Northern Ireland. By 1974, England was experiencing a violent attack every 3 days. The way the IRA usually did this was by placing bombs in random locations. When they planned to destroy a civilian target, the IRA would usually call the police and give them a warning. That way people could be evacuated before the bomb detonated. On the evening of November 21, 1974, the IRA placed 3 bombs around Birmingham. Then calls were made to the police, but the warning was too little too late. The police rushed to a pub named Mulberry Bush. They began trying to get people out of the building, but before the job was completed, a bomb exploded. The building fell on those still in the pub. Also, shrapnel tore through the victims. 10 people were killed and dozens were seriously wounded. A paramedic who arrived on the scene said one of the victims he found was nothing more than a screaming, writhing torso. Tavern on the Town was another pub located a short distance away. Police were busy trying to evacuate the building there as well, but 10 minutes after the explosion at Mulberry Bush, another bomb detonated at Tavern on the Town. 9 people were killed in the explosion and several more passed away from injuries later. A third bomb was found at Barclays Bank, but it didn't detonate as planned. 21 victims died in the explosions. Another 182 were seriously injured by them. British authorities began looking for the terrorists who had planted the bombs. They became aware of 6 men from Northern Ireland who boarded a train in Birmingham only 20 minutes before the explosions. The men were arrested and interrogated. They would later be known as the Birmingham Six. The police were eager for a confession, so they tortured the suspects until each of them signed a confession. The IRA made a public statement claiming that none of these men were part of the Irish Republican Army. The IRA also said that they were not responsible for the attacks in Birmingham. On July 9, 1975, the Birmingham Six were put on trial. On August 15th, a jury found them guilty. The judge told the men, "You stand convicted of each of 21 counts on the clearest and most overwhelming evidence I have ever heard of the crime of murder." All 6 men were sentenced to life in prison. The sentence was appealed in January 1987. However, the court upheld the sentence and refused to release the prisoners. But on August 29, 1990, the case was appealed again. This time there was new evidence that the police fabricated evidence. The Birmingham Six were finally released on March 14, 1991. Life is always a struggle. For some of those who experienced 1974, death was the only way out. What do you think about these depressing stories? Were the 1970s an especially dangerous time to be alive? Or is it perhaps just luck that determines whether someone lives or dies? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please subscribe to our channel. We wouldn't want you to miss the next episode in this series. And hit the like button if you want us to keep making content like this. Thank you for watching Bad Things in History.